Hi guys, Ryu here from Blender Bros and welcome to part 2. In this video, gonna be talking about the very basics of Blender UI. So the first time you're gonna open Blender, you're gonna see something like this. Now, depending on what kind of Blender you're opening, you're gonna see a different splash screen because the graphics, the pictures, the renders inside of that splash could change depending on which version we are using. We are using 3.2.0. So that's our splash screen. Now you're gonna see that screen in the middle only once, and when you click off of it, it will never come back. So now the options here are quite obvious. We don't have to worry about anything except actually one of them, and unless you want to change aesthetics on the theme. But the middle one is left and right. It refers to left and right mouse button, and the reason for it is because the old Blender 2.79 actually defaulted selection to a right mouse button, which was very counterintuitive. So they've changed it. Now by default it's left, so we don't have to change it. Next one is spacebar, and when you press spacebar it will play. Now what it means is that it will play a timeline. You can see on the bottom of our screen there's like a small narrow horizontal window. That's a timeline. And when you press space in Blender, you will start playing the timeline, which is basically for animations. Now we're not gonna be doing animations, and quite frankly, you're not gonna be using that bar very often. So to be honest, it's better to remap that to search. So I would just click on that and select search. Next one is the theme, so you can choose the dark or bright. I prefer dark. And the last one is actually loading settings from different Blender. Now I do have Blender 3.1 beta, so I could load settings from that Blender, but quite frankly I would not recommend this because you might get some conflict, especially if you are using add-ons. So when you're using add-ons, I wouldn't advise actually loading settings from other Blenders. It might cause some problems, so use it at your own discretion. And basically, that's it. We could just save new settings here and we can move on. Now that's a second splash screen, and this one you will see every single time you open Blender unless you turn it off, which by the way we will because I don't really need it. You got all kinds of different informations here. You can actually load your most recent files that you had loaded to Blender. You can go to manual online. You can also access development fund and read release notes. If you click off of that screen somewhere here, you'll get rid of it. Now, if you would like to turn that screen off, you need to go to edit here on the top, go to preferences, and here under splash screen, under interface, you can turn it off. Now here in the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the resolution of the font of the UI because it's a bit small. So I'm going to type 1.4 and I'm going to press enter. And here you can save or choose auto save preferences. So I'm going to actually untick that box here. So click on these three lines, untick that box and save manually. I prefer to save manually because I want to have control over what I'm saving and what I'm not saving, okay? So if you want automatic save preferences option, you just simply tick that box. If you don't, uncheck it and do it manually, okay? I'm gonna close it because we will not need it. So here you can see the default Blender interface. It can be very intimidating, but quite frankly, don't worry about it. You don't need to know everything, okay? Blender is a very versatile tool. You can do sculpting, you can do VFX, you can edit videos, you can model. You can do so many things in Blender that you're never going to be using everything, okay? So for example, in our case, we don't need the timeline on the bottom, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse it, okay? So when you hover your mouse here in the corner, okay, you can see that my mouse changes. A cursor changes from an arrow to a crosshair. When you click and drag in the direction you want to collapse a window, so in our case going down, you can see our arrow is gonna switch, and then when you release your mouse you can collapse a window. Conversely, you can actually open a window, so you can do the reverse here, hover over, then click and simply drag out, and you're gonna drag a window. You can do it from the side as well, so drag to the left, okay? So you can close them back, so close them, hover over, click and drag and release. Boom. Now let's talk about what's happening in here in the middle of Blender. We got three elements: camera, right? You can see here in that scene collection, camera. Then we have cube, right? And we have a light, okay? We don't need any of these at the moment. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna press A to select everything, press X and delete. We don't need them, okay? Now, the first time I opened Blender, I remember I didn't know how to even rotate or pan the environment. So if you want to rotate your environment, you simply click on your mouse wheel and you can just move your mouse like that, okay? So click on the middle mouse button and move your mouse. If you want to pan, you hold shift and then you click middle mouse button and you can move your scene left and right. If you want to zoom in and out, you simply, use your mouse wheel, okay? So one more time, middle mouse button to rotate, shift and middle mouse button to pan, and middle mouse button just to scroll, okay? So I'm going to adjust our scene a bit like that. So middle mouse button, shift middle mouse button, and peachy. And now what we're gonna do is we want to save this kind of a scene, this view. So each time we're gonna open Blender, this is what we're gonna see. Because if I close Blender right now without saving these preferences, we would be opening Blender with default settings. So the small font, the splash screen in the middle, cube, camera, light, and the timeline on the bottom. We don't need that, okay? So we're gonna go here to File, go to Defaults, and Save Startup File, and click on that and save. So now when I'm gonna close Blender, right, I'm not gonna save this scene, and I'm gonna reopen it again, you see that we have exactly the same scene opened. That also includes the size of your window. So in my case, I'm using 21:9 monitor, but since I'm recording in 16:9, my Blender is actually smaller than my monitor, okay? So it's in the middle of my monitor. So these preferences here, this save startup file information, will remember also the size and position of your window in Windows, okay? Now I don't use Max, so I don't know how it is on Max, so I cannot help you there, but I guess it's the same situation. So this will be the very basics of, the general basics of Blender interface, and in next video we're gonna go a bit deeper and we're gonna talk about what we actually need from this scene, what kind of information is important to us as a hard surface modeler, because this course will be focusing on what we need as hard surface modeling artists from Blender, okay? So this is gonna be my goal to, to inform you and show you what you really need to know in terms of UI and tools for your hard surface modeling. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in next video.